about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
And we're back. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So as a physician, I'm getting a little frustrated by where we are as it pertains to autism. Now, 1 in 31 children, 1 in 31, which is basically a child per classroom, is at risk of autism. Boys even higher than girls. And the rate of autism has risen 375% since 2000. Why? So we are seeing in the media that there's a lot of criticism of RFK Jr., and they're going after him and the CDC for not instilling trust in vaccines. I told you how I feel. I don't think our vaccine program causes autism. However, I think we do need to study if there could be a link, not necessarily autism, because we have a lot of studies saying it's genetic, more X chromosome related. You know, we're having more and more evidence that says, no, it's not, vaccines don't cause autism. However, what if there is a side effect that some children might be getting that might make it look like they are having a neurodivisive or neurodevelopmental issue? I say this because parents will not trust vaccines until we find the root cause of the autism. I can't tell you how many parents, they'll call up telemedicine companies and, we'll ask, do you vaccinate your child? And they'll say no. And when you ask why, and they'll bring up, they go, well, I don't know enough about them. There's a lot of them there. And these vaccines save lives. I don't want polio coming back. I don't want to see kids getting hepatitis. I don't want to see kids getting tetanus, meningitis. I mean, we want to protect our kids, but people are blaming RFK Jr. for a less enthusiastic embrace of vaccines by parents. But if you actually talk to the parents, they don't know what RFK Jr. is doing or care what he's doing. They're concerned because of what they've read, what they've seen, what they've, a lot of people have had a friend who said, yeah, my kid was acting normally. Then they got the vaccine and the child wasn't acting normally again. So even though that's what we call anecdotal, without evidence and without clinical, a supervised study of that, this is what's freaking parents out. And so, people keep asking me, Dahlia, when are people going to stop, talking about autism being caused by vaccines? And the answer to that is when we find the root cause of autism. So because until we do, parents are going to be very distrustful that the science says, we're clear. Now, me personally, I don't feel autism is caused by the vaccines because we have, people in our family, extended family, and it seems very genetic. There's a gene. There's, and I even asked the parent, I'm like, do you think it was vaccines? What do you think caused the autism, and the various stages and degrees? And even the parent said, I think it's genetic. And so, having it so close to the I find it very hard to believe that, everybody individually had an exposure that caused that. But you're not going to have the public comfortable with things being done to their infants until we come up with the root cause. And that's kind of tricky. Once we're like, guys, this is where autism came from. This is why we have it. Then they're like, okay, I could relax about the vaccines or I could relax about the Tylenol. But right now, it's 1 in 31 kids. What the heck is going on? Now, why boys? Why are boys more affected than girls? This is one argument against the vaccine theory, because girls and boys are both getting vaccines. I mean, you can even say boys might get less vaccines because they might fight harder than the girls. I don't know. But why is it so much more prevalent in boys? Well, they think that many autism-like genes are on the X chromosome. And so boys get one X and one Y, whereas girls have two X's. So if there is a mutation, the other X might, if it's more dominant, be able to mask the mutation on the other X. That's one consideration. Another could be the estrogen. Another could be boys' testosterone. might cause there to be more, shall we say, phenotypical expression of one's autism like issues. Girls might mask it better. So whereas boys still in society are expected to be, boys will be boys, playful and sporty and all that. With autistic boys, many of them are more clumsy. They are not very athletically inclined. They're not very, so it's with a girl. I hate to say this because, girls can throw. I can't throw, but a girl doesn't throw, or doesn't do sports as well. It's not as picked up as quickly as a boy. And so we do think that boys are going to be, discovered more and identified more. But we do see a much higher incidence in boys than girls. So that, again, kind of leads against the vaccine theory. But do we need to study what our infants are being exposed to? Is it something mom is taking? Is it our electromagnetic radiation? Is it our computers? Is it the food additives? Is it that we have older moms now and fibroids? That because I said I had 3 patients where their kids were autistic and all 3 of them had severe fibroids during their pregnancy. So, extra muscle tissue, could that be pressing on the brain? Could that be, so we need to study it. And I know medical professionals are very frustrated because their studies, not showing a link between, direct true autism and vaccines. But the parents are like, but until I know why, I'm going to be hesitant. There's also a lot of distrust of the government because of what happened with COVID and the COVID vaccine and the COVID origin theories. When a parent said, are you sure? And so this can be easily addressed once we figure out the root cause. But if we aren't figured out the root cause, or we don't figure out what's going on, or if we aren't looking at potential side effects or preservatives, either in our food or vaccines or exposures, if we're so busy, trying to, only look at one thing, we're not going to come up with the reason as quickly as possible. I know this administration promised that they would find it by last September. We still don't have the true cause of autism, but once we do, that's going to help. But until we do, many parents are still going to be reluctant about babies getting injections. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
right, we are back on Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So these Trump retirement accounts have been creating a lot of buzz. I think it's a fantastic idea. I don't know why, again, this wasn't done before. I think it's a fabulous idea, but let's kind of break it down and, tell you what's going on. So right now we rely on Social Security. If we reach a certain age and then we can't work anymore or support ourselves, or we need a supplemental income, Social Security is there to help us. We're entitled to it because we worked and we put that money in. And I've been working ever since I was, 18, maybe younger. And I put into Social Security, so there better be checks with my name on it for when I need it. Unfortunately, how the money has been managed, no, you don't have a check with your name on it. You don't have, a guaranteed Social Security income. We have to have Congress make sure they continue to fund it. And right now, Social Security is projected to be depleted by, I believe, 2033 to 2034, which is roughly a little sooner than when I would need it, but I'm going to eventually need it. And so being that Social Security's trust funds are projected to be depleted in that time, that's going to be frightening. Congress will have to act. They're going to have to put more money into it. And it's called the Old Age and Survivors Insurance, the OASI Trust Fund. They think that's going to be gone in about 7 years. The system will not be bankrupt, but it'll only have enough income from payroll taxes to pay maybe 77% of our benefits. Why? Well, because back in the 1950s, you had more people who were working. There were 16.5 workers for every beneficiary. So if you had, if you're like, okay, well, I'm about to need Social Security, and there were 16.5 people putting money in, I could be guaranteed some decent income. Now that's down to 2.7. Why? Well, because the big baby boomer shift, we have more older people than we're starting to have bigger swells of older population. We're living longer. We're not dying of heart attacks or cancer as quickly as we used to. So now we're living longer until our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And a lot of younger people aren't working. Half this country, right, is not paying taxes. So we have fewer people putting money into the system. And so lawmakers are considering, well, maybe we need to raise the tax rate to 12.4%. Maybe we need to raise the full retirement age. No, I don't like that. I do not like that because, sorry, when I'm due for mine, I'm due for mine. Don't be sitting there like every year going, oh, okay, well, just one more year. Come on. When I'm due, I'm due. Yeah, and so they're struggling. So Trump wants to, and I think all administrations should feel the same way about this, is figure out a way where we are not that desperately in need of Social Security. But a retirement account isn't something that everybody has. It's usually wealthy people or people who have had a job that put money in. The average person works at a job 1 to 2 years. And if their retirement account doesn't kick in with a match till a year and a half, they're not making much. And so what if the government helps subsidize, where the government will match the money if your employer isn't, or you don't have an IRA? And so this idea that it'll now allow lower income families to start having a retirement account is huge. Because if we're using the market to work for us, and then we're relying less on the government and their Social Security, it may actually save the government money. So now this is very different from the little baby accounts. Those are called Trump accounts. Those are for children that were born in the United States. They have to have a Social Security number. They have to be under 18. There's a $1,000 seed contribution available for eligible children who were born between 2025 and 2028. An adult has to administer the account. It's managed by the Treasury Department. And so those newborns that were born during the Trump's second term will then be able to get $1,000 put into their account, and then that start to grow, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, the Trump IRAs are to target lower to moderate income workers without employer-sponsored plans, featuring a savers match of up to $1,000 per year. Now, they say these are for working adults. They say single filers with a modified adjusted gross income of $20,500 or joint filers up to $41,000 will get the maximum match. There's a reduced match for those single filers earning $35,500 a year or joint up to $71,000 a year. And so they are focusing on small business employees, part-time workers, and independent contractors. So small business employees, it's interesting. When you own a small business and you want to, cover their payroll, cover the workers' comp, cover insurance, cover all that, their payroll taxes, their Medicare, FICA, all that. The many small businesses cannot afford to also be doing your retirement accounts. So retirement accounts are fantastic for employees, especially when somebody's matching. You could really build up a lot of money. If you put in your max and then have the government match it, that's free money. Or not the government, or have your employer match it, that's free money. Well, the reason why it has been stalled in Congress to mandate and make automatic employers automatically do these is because it's just too expensive. The average employer cannot afford their own retirement account for small business, rather than pay and match additional funds for their employees. Not to mention now that minimum wage is going up, and so they can't just say, you know what, I'll pay you less to cover the cost of me putting money into your IRA. So small businesses, they struggle. A lot of people are independent contractors, so they don't have a boss, so they don't have an IRA. So that was my issue. I was self-employed, but I had to pay off loans. I had no time to put money into a retirement account. And the retirement accounts were kind of expensive, what you had to match. And we figured it was like, it was not financially feasible for a small business, especially then when Obamacare was hardly paying us. So the fact that the government could help you start off with a retirement account is great. Now, it's a retirement account. Depending on what happens with the economy, you can lose money in the short term, depending on, if we do get a crash, etc. But overall, throughout time, it goes up. And so, by the time I think Trump projected that with these retirement accounts, some people will have about 450 grand. Let me see if I could find that. Yes, hold on a second. He said $465,000 in retirement savings if, people can start building up with their Trump account. People are criticizing him for that too, because they say if you have $465,000 in your retirement account and you're rich, not really. $465,000 might not last long, so they're criticizing him. But I got to tell you guys, bipartisanly, I think there's a lot of support for this, because we don't want to just, you want to teach a man to fish. You don't want to just give him fish. You want to teach a man to fish, right? What's that saying? Give a guy a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach him how to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. So that's what we need to do. We can't just be giving money. We're going to run out of money. Once you take it away. Remember, we talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago, where one of the states, California, did try a universal income, and it didn't get the people out of poverty. It might have helped them short term, but as soon as they had an issue with their car or a job loss, they were back to the basics. And then when the income stopped, that extra income stopped, they really felt it, because if they didn't change their spending and now they were spending more because they were getting the extra money, that was a problem. So we have to be very careful, because you can't just promise you're going to give universal income and give everybody something and then it doesn't happen. So it has to be something that is doable. So if these retirement accounts can kind of, shall we say, build on itself. Plus, Trump is working on a network of donors, where if people want their name on it, they want the credit, they want to be able to advertise their business, whatever, then help put money into the baby Trump accounts or the Trump retirement accounts. So he's working on that, where it's not just the government, but it'll also be private industry putting money into the system. I think it's a great idea. The other thing, too, that I really like about it is we start to teach people more financial literacy. A lot of us, we get a job, we have bills, and we just think, okay, well, I take this money and I just pay these bills, and then but there's ways to save. There's an art to saving. There's an art to paying bills. There's a way to do that. There's a way to deal with credit cards. There's a way to, there's a way to coupon. There's a way to downsize. So we don't really teach financial literacy. I never learned that in school. I mean, I had to learn it myself because I had a very, very small income. I had to find a roommate, find transportation, whatever. It was work multiple part-time jobs. But, once kids are starting to watch their accounts. They're starting to learn how the stock market works and learn about what happens with companies and start to see patterns, of how things go and how businesses go. And it's a great learning tool. So not only can they possibly have money by the time they're 18 and able to use that for college or anything else they use it for, having money puts money into the system. I think Elon Musk was talking about a sort of universal income, saying if you give people money, they're going to put money into the system and it'll help there be growth. But I would rather people earn it. I'd rather they learn how to make it. And so at least with these retirement accounts, there's a learning process with it. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. Hi, guys. Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious, such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out.
Lisa Wolf here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you. And be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I am, like many other physicians, kind of in the unique spot of where we did things in medicine traditionally and very expeditiously flipped to doing things in medicine we were trained not to do. I would get in big trouble as a medical student if I didn't perform a physical exam on a patient, and I would treat them based on what they told me. I mean, telemedicine was only done after the patient had a workup, after there was, proper vetting, and if that problem was something that only needed a very specific, shall we say, very specific action. So like somebody calling me up saying they have chest pain. I'm like, gotta go in and get seen. Well, I don't want to go in and get seen. Just call me in a prescription. I mean, we would do telephone consults, but we were still bounded by ethics, bound by do no harm, bound by, certain, fear of being negligent, and we did proper medicine to make sure that people got an exam, got things done. And so if you told me in the 90s that somebody could get an abortion without ever seeing a doctor, I would be shocked, because I'm like, well, whoa, wait a second. Well, who's verifying that they're pregnant? Who's verifying that the pregnancy is an ectopic? That it's a uterine pregnancy? Because if you give them medications and it's an ectopic, they're seeing somebody first, though, right? No. We have now moved to people being able to do their abortions through mail or telehealth. And it's becoming so popular that now there's laws starting to look at it going, well, wait a second here. You have to get an antibiotic talking to a doctor. You can't get an antibiotic over the counter. You can't, then, how are you able to get an expulsative medication, an abortifacient medication, without having an exam or proper vetting or being warned of the risks? And so, from what we understand, there was a the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals had reinstated a nationwide requirement that getting mifepristone, one of the medicines we use in medical abortions, to be obtained by a medical provider. That, however, has now had an administrative stay. The Supreme Court is allowing temporarily people to still be able to do their abortions remotely with a remote provider because there was potential chaos of all these patients who had appointments to access the medication. So Justice Sam Alito stayed the Fifth Circuit ruling that now will take us through May 11th. And apparently Danco Laboratories that make mifepristone told the Supreme Court that the appeal, in its appeal, that the Fifth Circuit order injects immediate confusion and upheaval into highly time-sensitive medical decisions, and it abruptly cuts off access for patients nationwide. Now, again, I was kind of confused because how I was trained is you can't do this without a doctor examining you because we got to make sure you're not going to have complications. But nowadays, we're doing a lot of things over telemedicine. And even though most telemedicine companies still have standards saying, look, you do need to get an exam, we could only refill if you've had an exam by somebody, because time is of the essence when it comes to abortions. If somebody says, but I can't see a doctor, then these companies are allowing you to do it remotely. I think what's really the biggest tragedy is we have on average 1 million women being faced with this very tragic decision, do I keep the baby or do I not? I feel bad for these women. That's got to be. I just don't know why we have so many. I mean, we can really work to helping these women by limiting unwanted pregnancies. And is it that they're getting attacked or raped and we need to increase our police presence? Is it that the condoms aren't working? Is it that condoms are too expensive at $1 a pop? But being that the Supreme Court had to come in to do a stay on this because there are so many women needing abortions, we really need to kind of look at, because when a woman is undergoing an abortion, she's putting herself at risk. So mifepristone is the first pill they get. It's supposed to block the progesterone. When you get pregnant, when a woman gets pregnant, the progesterone needs to build up the lining and to allow the fertilized egg to attach and grow. That's why women have periods, because when their progesterone drops, then the lining drops and detaches. So the mifepristone, what it does is it blocks progesterone. So when it's your natural tendency to make sure there's a home for the baby, if there's no progesterone, or if there's not enough progesterone, there's nothing for the baby to attach, and so it could then abort. Misoprostol is the second pill. That causes uterine contractions, cervical softening, and expulsion of the pregnancy tissue. Because some people might not, if they may not be able to pass just by using the mifepristone alone. And so you need that decidual necrosis. We call it decidual necrosis by blocking progesterone, causing the breakdown of the decidua, which is the uterine lining, and then it detaches the fertilized egg. So it's a prostaglandin E1 analog, the misoprostol, that helps cause the uterine contractions and then the expulsion, leading to cervical softening and dilation. So day one, you stop the progesterone. It stops the pregnancy from growing. And then 24 to 48 hours later, you take the second pill, and that will cause cramping and bleeding and the medical abortion. According to the FDA, the combination is highly effective, 95% for medical abortions up to 70 days gestation. So it has to be first trimester. Now, what are some of the side effects with mifepristone? You could have an incomplete abortion. It might kill the fertilized egg, but it might not allow, you might not be passing it. You could get infection. And a biggie is failure to diagnose an ectopic pregnancy. When you take a pregnancy test and it says you're positive, okay, is it in the uterus? Is it still stuck in the tube? How do we know? Well, we always examine you. We in person. But now that we're not examining you, now you're trying to expel a pregnancy that might not even be there. So that's usually something we kind of want to confirm. You could get very heavy bleeding. 1 in 100 women, 1%, may require surgical intervention like a DNC if the bleeding is too heavy. So who's watching these women, the 1% of women? There's also, dizziness, cramping, abdominal pain, etc. But the biggest thing is if taking this mifepristone without somebody, easily accessible and watching you and examining you, it might not fully terminate the baby. And if it doesn't fully terminate it, then it could also cause then birth defects. You could also get infection. It won't help the ectopic pregnancy because the pregnancy is growing outside the uterus, and it could not work. And you could have a continued pregnancy, which could be kind of dangerous. With the misoprostol, that could also cause cramping, heavy bleeding. It could even cause uterine rupture. It could also cause severe fetal harm, birth defects, if used in pregnancy and it's not necessarily doing the job. So very dangerous uterine contractions, uterine rupture. Now, some people, they do really fine on the combo medication. But for others, they have a baby now with teratogenic defects because it didn't take. Skull defects, limb defects. So what we do is we examine you and then we follow up and we ultrasound. So I was a little shocked that this was happening without a medical provider in state, in the vicinity. But that's what's happening now. We're trying to expand, I guess, as a whole, access online. And that's what is now temporarily allowed until May 11th. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99-799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99-799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99-799. Again, FREE to 99-799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
Back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani has come down with pneumonia and has been hospitalized. He's 81 years old. He was hospitalized in critical condition on Sunday. He is currently in Florida. And according to Giuliani's business partner, Tom Von Essen, he said Rudy had a tough weekend. He had pneumonia. Von Essen worked as the New York City fire commissioner during the 9/11 terrorist attacks when Giuliani was mayor. And a spokesperson for Giuliani, Ted Goodman, confirmed that he was recovering from pneumonia. So, this can add more complications. They believe it started with a virus. And I think he did require mechanical ventilation, meaning they might have had to intubate him to stabilize his condition and add oxygen. Now, however, we're being told he is breathing on his own, so it sounds like he might have been extubated already. Still remains critical and stable condition. So his spokesperson, Mr. Goodman, asked that we keep prayers coming. He's 81 years old, Giuliani, and I am really glad that we've been able to live longer, and to see the life expectancy of men reach in their 80s and 90s. It's fantastic, but unfortunately, you can be as healthy as you can, and the big things that get us when we're older is heart disease, cancer, but pneumonia. Because people always ask, they say, "Look, Doc, I'm doing everything right, so if I just keep staying on this path, I can make it. I can make it longer." And I say, keep doing what you're doing, be good, etc. Keep good diet, good exercise. But if anything changes or you get sick, please, for the love of God, get yourself checked out, because we want to make sure you don't get pneumonia. Being that it's May, to get pneumonia in May, was it COVID pneumonia? Was it a viral pneumonia? Was it, we see a lot of pneumonia in the wintertime. That's unfortunate when we see higher death rates. But you could be vulnerable. I don't know if he was a former smoker, or not, but pneumonia can unfortunately be very, very unpredictable. A pneumonia is where a lobe of your lung gets inflamed or infected. And when you have fluid buildup and inflammation, you can't use that lobe to oxygenate. Not to mention it could spread to other lobes. And so if you don't have good functioning lobes of the lung, you can't breathe. And that's why we have to then intubate. So we got to bring down the inflammation, address the infection, and do our best to try to get you breathing and oxygenating again. So Godspeed to Rudy Giuliani. I hope he can get through this. New York City definitely has a lot more troubles since when Rudy Giuliani was there. And the new mayor, Zohran Mamdani, is now struggling with a quote-unquote historic budget crisis. As of May 2026, New York City is facing a $2.2 billion shortfall in the fiscal year 2026, a $10.4 billion gap in fiscal year 2027, totaling over $12.6 billion, according to Comptroller Mark Levine. Now, Mayor Zohran Mamdani blames the other administration, blames their budgeting, and now is looking at increasing taxes, trying to figure out city reserves, and asking if Albany and Governor Hochul can help bail them out. But he promised all these free things. He promised free childcare, rent stabilization, taxing the rich. And I don't think he's going to be able to accomplish what he wants to accomplish, because you need wealthy people to help subsidize what you're trying to do for non-wealthy people. And when you alienate them and people are leaving, look, Giuliani's in Florida. Every people are leaving New York City. And so, this idea of, the rich and the oligarchy, I think Bernie Sanders was going after the oligarchy, et cetera. Well, who is supplying the money? Who is donating? Who's, these hospitals with names on them? The reason why the hospital was built is because there were donors. This is, scholarships for school. This is, you need wealthy people to help. And you can't force them by keeping on taxing, because then they're going to find other ways to still be wealthy, which means they're going to raise prices on what the consumers have to buy. But, Mayor Mamdani, we knew what he was promising was a lot of false promises. Oh, it sounds great. Free childcare. You know how wonderful that would have been for me? I worked really, really hard, because on top of my student loans, on top of, extended family needing money, I also, my kids and their daycare. It was expensive. If I didn't have to pay for that, I might have been able to work a few less hours and actually pick up my kids from school and actually see them a little bit more. I would have loved that. But who pays for that? Where does that money come from? So seeing a projected gap of $12.6 billion over the next 2 years, especially since wealthy people have been leaving, they want to now tax the second home of wealthy. They want to, add more taxes. They want, free bus rides. Well, that'd be nice. And I'm sure that probably helped get you elected, free bus rides. But then who manages the security on these free bus rides? We heard that a lot of people couldn't use the buses because, individuals were living on the buses. Homeless individuals, found a nice warm or cool place to live. So who handles the security of that? So basically, these buses are going to be driving around homeless people, you know, so they have a place to stay, which is a very nice thing to do. But you promised people free bus rides. So we'll see what happens. But Mamdani now and the city council are in a budget battle. They have different views on how to bridge the gap. And Mamdani will not be able to make good on most of his promises if he doesn't have money coming in. And increasing property taxes and keeping on taxing the rich, not a good, I think, the answer they're looking for. Now, one of you had asked why with the Democratic primary in California, everybody was up there. When do the Republicans debate and when do the Democrats debate? Well, California has a different system. I think Nebraska may have this and other states might have it too. It's called the jungle primary system, where the primary is just everybody, regardless of race. And whoever ends up being the top two candidates are the ones that then run and battle it out. So the parties no longer hold separate primary elections. Basically, all the candidates are in one common primary. Then the top two finishers or competitors advance to the general election. So the Democrats like this, and other states did too, because they're like, okay, well, it's always a Democrat, so we're good. Now we don't have to have a Democrat up against a Republican. This is how we'll always be able to have a Democrat win. The problem is now with what happened with Swalwell, it's not a problem for the Republicans. It's a good thing for the Republicans. The two people in the lead are the two Republicans. Former Fox News contributor Steve Hilton and Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco are seen in a lot of these polls the lead. So if those two end up getting the majority of the votes, now I still believe a Democrat's going to probably make it, and it'll be a Republican Democrat. But the jungle primary used to help the Democrats by, Republicans would never get enough. So the top two, if they're Democrat, that ensures they have a Democrat running. But what happens now that Swalwell's gone and people don't really like the other candidates? Meanwhile, the Republicans are now not as split. And so seeing Steve Hilton rise, and Chad Bianco. So that's going to be very interesting. Now, the two of them have been at the top of almost every poll in the governor race. And according to the New York Post, they say that's because there have been so many prominent Democrats in the race that they have split the vote between them, which means if the Democrats want to have a chance, they're going to have to ask people to bow out. This is kind of what happened with Mamdani in New York. Curtis Sliwa, pulled obviously the Republican votes. And so for those Republicans who didn't really want to vote for Governor or ex-Governor Cuomo, and, they wanted to show they were kind of strong and, supporting Sliwa. I know I had dinner with Curtis. He's a great guy. Now, but people were asking him to pull out so that the Cuomo would have more of a lead. But the Republicans don't like Cuomo, so I don't think that would have worked either. But Mamdani won resoundingly, and now he is the mayor of New York. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in California. But yeah, their so-called primary, their debate had everybody in it because that's how it happens before the main general election. 1-877 Doc Dolly. Don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.